we're able to all share potentially our video, and it's really remarkable.
Well, and you will be so impressed with our awesomeness because Gina has just gotten it where it is live streaming on our LifeQuest Facebook page and being recorded. And when this is our class is finished, just as it was in the foreign policy class previous to this one, it will be posted on our website. So we are multimedia savvy at this point. We're learned so much, and I've never even heard of Zoom 2 months ago, and I'm the least techie person on the team. So
I will say I had heard of Zoom and been in a couple of Zoom meetings, but recording and streaming to Facebook, these are all new things, and having classes with passwords and guest speakers at the ready and stuff, it's fun for our members. I'm glad to see it happening.
Definitely.
We're going to wait just a minute or two more. And as everyone is joining in,
1918.
Shawn, it's up to you when folks ask questions. We'll just take your cue. And we will, at this point, hope that people either raise their blue hands if they know how. If they don't, they can unmute themselves and ask a question at your cue. Or they can write a chat, and we will be reading the chats. And so if they feel more comfortable writing a question in, we'll be monitoring those as well.
That sounds great.
Right now we have, looks like 15, 17 folks. Here's some more.
And Leah, we can certainly take questions throughout. What I thought I might do, because I think we have a full hour, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is finish at about the 45-minute mark, if that's okay, and then really leave it open for wide questions for 15 minutes.
That's great. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get us started then. Everyone, welcome to the class this morning. This is a special opportunity, a one-time class, and we're really grateful to have Shawn Johnson participate with us. I'm gonna let Shawn tell you about himself and his background and what he's gonna cover, but he has let us know that questions are welcome throughout, and then particularly at the end will be, so if you want to write your question in the chat box or just keep it in mind for at the end. And then if you have a pertinent one about what he's saying, you can unmute yourself or you can raise your hand, and Gina and I will be looking to assist with your participation today. So welcome, Shawn. Take it away. I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you very much, Leah and Gina and everyone. In the LifeQuest community is absolutely remarkable, and I am so grateful for the opportunity to be with you and to talk to you about scams and problems that we're seeing out as a consumer protection attorney that I see. I'm originally from Fort Smith and went to Hendrix College and graduated from there in 1998. Go Hendrix, go Warriors. Graduated from there in 1998, and then I went on to DC for a couple of years working for the government, and then from there to Scotland on a Rotary scholarship for a year. Studied medieval history. I don't think I see Dr. McCainch on here, not quite yet anyway, but studied medieval history in Scotland, and then from there came back and went to law school at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, where I graduated in '04. And I moved on to Little Rock and went to work at the Mitchell Williams law firm downtown for 2.5 years. And then after that, I went to the Attorney General's office. I have worked as a consumer protection attorney for a good while, and I'm always excited to help people see some of the things that are affecting us, particularly information that I've gained from the Federal Trade Commission and sources like that. Where I can help people see the problems that they can avoid. I had a judge that I clerked for, Robert Dawson. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Bob Dawson. He's a federal judge over there, and he used to use that expression that once you squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube, it's pretty hard to get it back in there, isn't it? Well, that's the same with a scam, and scams are best prevented rather than fixed on the back end, because once we have to go and try and get that money back after it's been wired or after gift cards have been utilized, in order to make a purchase. It's really complicated, as Judge Dawson would say, to put that toothpaste back in that tube. It's been squeezed out, it's gone. So we do whatever we can in order to help protect people, and that I do whatever I can to help protect people in that respect. And so that's what I want to impart upon you today, is some of the things that are happening out there and ways that we might be able to prevent them. I often say that scams are kind of like a magic trick. The magician wants us to be fooled, and we want to be fooled in a magic trick because it's entertaining, right? It's entertaining. It's something that we pay for. We might go to a magic show and watch that. But a scam is just like a magic trick, except in a scam, we don't want to be fooled. If you get fooled and your money gets taken, then it's no good. It's certainly not what we wanted. So that's why we really focus on making sure that we can identify and recognize what we're seeing, that we're not being given a fair deal. And if we see that, then we just need to say no and walk away. So if I can, I don't want to be just another presenter that shows you a presentation on screen, but I have prepared some slides that I think will be helpful to us. And if at any point anyone has any questions, please just raise your hand or unmute and chime in, ask a question. There are so many twists on all of these types of scams, but they all are very similar. And I'll talk to you about that here in a moment. They all want to get the same basic information from us. So let me just start this off here. You can see here, it's a welcome to scam school. This is a discussion, as you can see, of scams in the age of COVID-19. And I'm just going to go through these slides, again, making it very conversational. And I want it to be interesting and helpful. If you need more information on these issues, a lot of this that I've put together is at this website right here that I'm circling with my cursor or my pointer, scamschool.org. I set that up in order to help encapsulate what some of these scams are. Again, they derive from the Federal Trade Commission's guidance on this. And I'll have that website again at the end. Our goals today are to identify common scams with a couple of subpoints there for COVID-19 twists and related stories. And then the second bit there, the second goal is to discuss tips on how to avoid these scams. So we're going to identify and we're going to talk about tips. And we'll just put these slides up and I'll just talk through them. These common scams, there are top 10. There's a top 10 list that I help put together here based upon what I've seen and what is out there from the Federal Trade Commission. These are, and by the way, the Federal Trade Commission is watching this nationwide, and we're all experiencing many of the same things in all of the states. Just because we're in Arkansas and it's a little more rural in some places, we're not immune to these issues. They're experiencing this just the same way in Los Angeles and in New York and in Missoula, Montana. So it's all the same. The Publishers Clearinghouse scam is still going on. We all remember Ed McMahon. We remember those little magazine subscriptions and the stamps. And I remember sitting on my grandparents' floor with those golden envelopes and putting those stamps into the boxes and figuring out which magazines I wanted to order. Well, the scammers would have us believe that Ed McMahon is still with us, that he is still trying to give us money, and all that the scammer wants us to do is to pay a fee in order to win our prize money. Now, this is important, and it goes through this whole presentation, this idea that a scammer preys on two innate human qualities that we have, or two things that affect our receptors in our brain. I'll just say it that way. And they are fear and urgency. Fear and urgency. They always want to do to prey on those two things that we are concerned about and that will affect us in a way to get us to move quickly. They will make us fearful and that we need to urgently respond to fix it. Now, in this respect, with the Publishers Clearinghouse scam, what the scammer wants us to believe is that you have won a prize and that you need to pay money in order to get that huge amount of cash. They want you to pay an upfront fee. And the way that they do this, in order, just like the magic trick, in order to buy credibility, is they want you to believe that they are down the street They have the balloons, they have the flowers. Mr. Harvey, who is the new Ed McMahon, is down there with them and the movie cameras, and they're ready to make you famous and rich. And they've just got this little old fee of $500, and they need for you to wire the money, or they need for you to buy gift cards in order to give them the money. And then they're going to give you the prize. But the little tip there is it doesn't cost money to win money. Unless we are playing the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, or we are down at Oaklawn or Southland or something like that, it does not cost money to win money. And that's immediately when we know it's a scam. So it's that fear and urgency. I'm going to miss these prize winnings if I don't send some money through a gift card or a wire transfer. This happens all the time also in fake emails. Fake emails will do this. I get more emails from fake sources telling me that I'm going to win 17 million pounds sterling. You see those? Because some prince in Saudi Arabia has told me that I can win it. And again, they just want you to give your bank account information, or they want you to wire money or anything like that. It's anything that requests money on the front end is generally a scam when it comes to prize winnings. The jury duty scam. Now I'm going to do this one together with that IRS scam and the Social Security scam. They're really all three of the same thing. You can see 2, 3, and 4 there. And all of these are on that scamschool.org website. They have this information there. I moved it from there into this presentation so that we could go through it. All of these are variations on the exact same thing. And that's why I go back to this idea of a magic trick, right? A magic trick generally wants us to be fooled. It wants to set up the magic trick. It wants to conduct the magic trick, and then it reveals the magic trick through what's called the prestige at the end of the magic trick. It wants us to be fooled. Well, that's the same with the jury duty, IRS scam, Social Security scam, and any number of other government imposter scams. And be thinking about CDC and COVID-19 right now, because that's just another way to do exactly the same thing as what they're doing with the jury duty scam, the IRS scam, and the Social Security scam. What the scammers ultimately want is your name, which they already have, your date of birth, your Social Security number, and your bank account information. They want those 4 things: name, date of birth, Social Security number, and bank account information. And once they get those latter 3 things, they can open up a line of credit, or at least try, and they're off to the races with hopefully some money that they didn't come by honestly. So there are 3 ways here to set that up that I just want to point out. One is this jury duty scam. I would generally, when I speak in person, I would say, everybody raise your hand if you've gotten one of these, because they're very common. A lot of people have gotten them. This is when the local sheriff's deputy calls and says, Mr. Johnson, we've got a warrant here for your arrest. You've missed jury duty. And of course, what am I thinking? I'm a law-abiding person, and this person is telling me that all of a sudden a legal process has been taken against me, and it is recorded at the courthouse, and I'm going to be on the evening news. That's what I'm thinking. Fear and urgency. Automatically, fear and urgency are coursing through my brain, and I need to get it urgently resolved. And the way that the scammer buys credibility is they say, they're with the Pulaski County or whatever county we're in. They are very good at tailoring the scam to whatever county you're in. And they will say that they're with that sheriff's department and that there's a warrant for your arrest and that you need to come down to the station. And then urgently, as I'm trying to get this resolved, they then offer you this little solution. I'll offer to allow you to pay it off over the phone. Now here's where it gets funny, it gets silly, is they'll say, yeah, just go down and get some money cards from Walmart, or go down to Walgreens or to Target or Kroger. I mean, when you go into Kroger here in Little Rock, there's a sea of debit cards and gift cards that you can buy up near the front of the store. And these types of cards are mixed in that somewhere. They're either Citibank or Visa or however they're branded. Green Dot is another company that does this. And they want you to buy these cards. And so then they want you to pay it off through those means. But the way that they do that is then they tell you over the phone, just scratch off the numbers on the back and give them to me. And the reason they do that is because they sell them on the dark web. This is a version of the internet that none of us really have access to. It's where all the bad things happen. There are sales for, I suppose, drugs, illegal currency, all sorts of things happen on that dark web that we can't see. And they use those cards, and they might even use legitimate places like eBay and other places to sell those cards. Because if the scammer gets them for free, they're worth a lot when it comes to selling them online. So anyway, the jury duty scam is very prevalent, but do know this is the little practice tip, is that a judge will generally not issue a warrant for people who miss jury duty. It's not going to happen. So if somebody says that you've missed jury duty and there's a warrant, it's a lie. It's a scam. That is not happening. A judge will not do that. The judge, generally a judge might give you a dirty look. The bailiff might call, you might get a telephone call, but you're certainly not going to get arrested. And it's important to recognize that scam before it happens. IRS scam and Social Security are actually very similar. Both of these, again, just like with the magic trick, all they're wanting is your name, your date of birth, your Social Security number, and your bank account information. So with the IRS scam, what they'll do is call. I mean, I would ask for a show of hands. I know many of us have gotten these calls. There are these robocalls that come in that tell you that you're going to be arrested because you failed to pay your taxes. So what they're trying to do is prey on our sense of fear and urgency again. Fear and urgency. I am apparently not in good standing with the government because I missed my taxes. And I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to get a letter. I'm going to be on a list somewhere. And so immediately your sense of urgency wants to fix this problem. And good news is the scammer wants to help you fix that problem. And the way that they want to do that, just like with the jury duty scam, is allow you to pay off the warrant for your arrest in order to get it, to make it go away. But again, that just isn't right. And it's a scam. The IRS will not reach out to us by telephone without first establishing contact by letter. They're going to send a letter first, and they're not going to call us. That's one of the first indications that it's a scam. The second one is when they ask when they tell you how to pay for it, and they want you to pay for it by sending gift cards and things like that. That just isn't right either. That's what the IRS is not going to accept payment, or the government is not going to accept payment using some gift card scheme or something like that, and asking you to scratch off the numbers on the back. This happens to a lot of sophisticated business people. This is not just people who are unaware of these issues, or people who haven't been through some sort of a scams course like this, like Scam School, or some sort of other venue where this has been presented before. I know of one local business person here who got taken for that jury duty scam. The reason that he did, he's like I said, a local small business owner. He's a very, very sophisticated guy. The reason that he did is because he had been out of state during the prior week. And when he got back and he got that phone call from that scammer, it indicated and suggested to him that he should trust it, because he thought he had missed jury duty. He thought it was real. What he should have done probably is called the local circuit clerk and asked if he's on the jury wheel. You know, that's a thing to do, is start investigating it oneself by going to the source, the real source of where that would otherwise be coming from. For example, with the IRS, I know the IRS is very hard to reach, but there are ways to look and figure out if they are in fact calling people, and they're going to tell you no. If you go to the irs.gov website, they'll have all kinds of scam alerts on these phone calls that have been coming through. Same with jury duty. Your local court would be able to tell you they've been hearing this, just hang up, don't give in to it. Now, the Social Security scam is similar, like I said, to that IRS scam. This is number 4 there. That Social Security scam is designed to try and make us believe that our Social Security number is being canceled. It's being discontinued for some reason. But everybody, the government will never cancel that Social Security number until long after we're gone. It's just not going to happen unless we're in the witness protection program. And I think even then, they're just going to give you a second Social Security number and keep that other one active. They're not going to reissue it or cancel it for some reason. But these scammers can find ways to make this really interesting. I know of one situation in which a pastor in Conway County, a pastor over in Morrilton, received a call saying, and it was actually a call to his wife, received a call saying that a car that had been registered in her name was involved in illegal drug running activity. And that means that she's sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm the pastor's wife. Everybody's going to think that I was somehow involved with this illegal drug running, even though it's not true. And so fear and urgency, I'm sure, are going through her mind. I am fearful of being shown to be something that I'm not, and I need to urgently fix it. I mean, she is being accused of breaking the 10 commandments, right? So she's going to try to fix that quickly. And what they said was, look, as a courtesy to you, we're the federal government. We're telling you that this was involved in federal or in illegal drug running activity. So as a courtesy to you, we're going to cancel your social security number and issue you a new one. And she goes, oh, you mean 431, and starts reading it over the phone. That's what they want us to do, is read it back. Now that goes back to those 4 pieces of vital information: the name, date of birth, the social security number. Now they've got it, okay? And then the bank account information. Luckily, she stopped it somewhere in there and it all got stopped. So the toothpaste didn't get squeezed out of the tube, as we say. We didn't have anything to fix. I didn't have anything to fix. So that's important. So those are the government imposter scams. We'll talk here in a moment, in a couple of slides after this, about the COVID-19 twists that go with that. I'll also mention this very important one, and it's number 5, what is sometimes called the favorite grandchild scam. There are a lot of scammers who want to prey on people based upon their life experience. And oftentimes these are seniors who scam artists are preying upon. And that's why it's sometimes called the favorite grandchild scam, but it really doesn't have to be about grandchildren. It could be about brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, parents. We have to remember that online, a lot of our information is being shared with various organizations who are collecting our data. And those entities, like on these ancestry sites, right? If you do any sort of genealogy work and you are looking for family relatives, there are sites that collect all that information. So right now, if you go online and look for relatives of mine, you might find family members who are related to me. And it would be very simple, just like with what I'll describe as a grandchild scam, for someone to call and tell me that my sister had been involved in a terrible accident and they need for me to wire $20,000 in order for her to have a life-saving surgery, right? That could happen. And that's what's happening with the grandchild scam. Same thing. A lot of scammers, they're looking up names that might generationally match names that we're no longer using as often. We don't hear the names like Pearl and Mabel. We don't hear names like those. Just like today, it's people are named Hunter and all these new sort of, they just match different time frames, these names. And so scammers know that, and they will prey on people with those names that might not be as common in this day and age for young children. And they'll call them and say, Grandma or Grandpa, this is Billy. And the reason they know the grandchild's name is because it's available on the internet somewhere. This is Billy. I'm in jail. I need for you to wire, $10,000. And immediately fear and urgency enter the person's mind. I need to very quickly resolve this problem for my relative. And the way to dispel this, the way to dispel it, is to immediately contact a common relative. Just hang up the phone and call a common relative. Now, this is important, not so much for everyone here at all. It's so that we can tell our friends and tell other people. I invite and I suggest that people create what I call safe spaces for these discussions. I think that a lot of us don't want to look foolish. I certainly don't when it comes to a scam. And so we might be inclined not to say anything about it or to share that we're experiencing these things. And I think it's important before these scams happen and before we get that phone call to possibly establish someone in the family who you can speak with about these things or advise someone else to do that, so that in the event that you're taken for a scam, you have somebody you can talk to and say, gosh, I'm just really amazed at how this happened. And somebody who you can bounce it off of before we fall victim to it. That understanding objectively how to recognize a scam can be a really complicated thing, especially when fear and urgency are the drugs of choice, because that's what's happening in the brain. Those little sensations of fear and urgency will cause us to do some pretty strange things. And so having somebody to bounce that off of, I think, is very helpful. Just lastly here on the latter half, I'll mention what's called the sweetheart scam. You know, everybody's looking for love these days, and Facebook is no exception. Facebook is a place where a lot of these sorts of things happen. We have to remember that Facebook started by Mark Zuckerberg when he was probably 19 at Harvard, and it was only available for people at Harvard during its first several months, and then it opened up to academic institutions all over the country, anybody with a .edu email address. It went there, and then it became much bigger, and it was all the youth who were doing it. And now the youth have kind of moved off of it, and it's moved to people of my age and above. Now I'm 44, so it's moved from my age and above, and a lot of folks are watching pictures of their grandkids, and you know it's really moved into a different generational use. But we have to remember that the Facebook platform also allows Messenger, which is that sometimes annoying feature that it has where people can write to us, and people we don't even know can write to us. And we have to remember that on Facebook, people can make themselves look and appear like something they're not. They can make themselves look like General Clark. We've met General Wesley Clark here in town. He's a very common, I'm told, a very common Facebook profile to impersonate. He's a successful general. They might even show him in his uniform or another member of the military. They do this a lot, and they prey on people who have recently lost their spouse. And what they're trying to do is gain a great deal of trust and perhaps a love interest from someone on Facebook in order to ask them to send money. I know of one instance, it's a very sad story, but a woman who I spoke with, who I ultimately got her linked up with IWC3, which is the FBI's white collar crime internet tracking site, and anybody can access it and make a report. Because she was contacted on Facebook. She had lost her husband within the preceding year or somewhere around in there. And she was lonely, and she told me that. And she said that she was visiting with him on the internet, and he seemed to be a handsome guy and put together. And he was a construction worker and was living out in California. And he was expressing a lot of interest in her, and they were sharing old stories. And so she's giving him all this information, but doesn't realize that's what's happening. He's learning a lot about her, and then preying upon her by ultimately saying, I need to buy some tools for my construction site. Can you wire some money? And from there, it goes to a next thing and a next thing and a next thing. And ultimately, she believed that they were going to get married. And I said, ma'am, have you ever met him before? She said, no. And I said, well, why do you believe that you're going to be married? And she just said, well, we're just very close. And they would talk on the phone and everything. So it seemed very real. This was the magic trick version of this. It's going along because he's preying on her love interest. Well, ultimately he gets transferred to the Philippines. And so he is doing work over there. And what do you think the next phone call is that she gets from the Philippines? And I know we're all on mute. She gets a call from a doctor, someone saying that he's a doctor, and her love interest, the love of her life, who she's going to get married to, be thinking about fear and urgency. The love of her life has been involved in this major accident and needs a life-saving surgery. She needs to wire $25,000. And so then it becomes, certainly something that she wants to resolve. Luckily, she didn't wire that money. But by the end of it, I learned, and she's since passed away. I learned this from her daughter, who called me and didn't understand why I was speaking with her. And that I explained all of this to her. And she said, do you know, by the end of all of this, Mom had sent $75,000 to that scammer. These are big dollars, big scams, and big money. And the scam artist wouldn't do it if it wasn't lucrative. And so we just really have to be mindful in protecting our friends and loved ones to just shut down, shut off, do not engage with these scam artists. It's all a scam. We also have the online auction and second chance scam there, number 7. This is the idea that on eBay, and I use eBay sometimes, I buy things on there. It's been, it's kind of unique. You can buy all sorts of old baseball cards and things that are collectibles from years ago. You can find them on there. But sometimes people are buying and selling big ticket items too. And I wouldn't do this. There may be some on this call who do this. I'm just not really this type of a risk person, but they buy and sell cars and boats and tractors on Facebook, and on eBay. And eBay actually has policies that ensure those sorts of sales and purchases in the event that they're not followed through correctly. And it's interesting to see these things happen. Well, when you bid on eBay, all of the bids are private as to who all's bidding until the auction is over with. And when the auction concludes and there's a winner, the winner is revealed, but so are all of the bidders who bid on that item. And what the scam artists can do, if they're looking through all of the sold or concluded auctions, is they can see who came in second. Whoever came in second or third clearly wanted that item too. And so the scammer can go into the eBay auction, can take the photograph from the auction and create an email or a electronic contact message in some way, maybe through eBay or through email in some respect, and write to you and say, hey, the winning bidder fell through. Are you still interested in the item? If so, I'll let you wire the money to me. So I know, for example, I know of a guy in Batesville who did this very thing. He was buying a tractor and he missed out on it. He came he came through at the second, as the second highest bidder. And he was so excited that the winning bidder fell through because it gave him the option to buy this great tractor. So he wires money, wire transfers money down to Florida to a place down there, a bank down there, and the tractor never comes. And that's because the item never existed for the second chance sale. It was a fraud. And so on second chance scams, I always tell folks, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is there. And those second chance scams, if it's not within eBay, for example, with eBay in particular, if you're not buying and selling within eBay, then there are no protections. They will only protect sales that happen within eBay. And so it's important just to stay within the payment system there. We also have check payment scams. This is the old check scam, and this happens a lot. This is where a scam artist sends you a fake check and says, deposit this and then send me some money back, which is a very bizarre request. These checks look very real. They have the magnetic ink character recognition numbers at the bottom, those little robotic numbers, which the lawyers and bankers call Micker numbers. Those numbers at the bottom look and appear real. It'll have a series number in the top right there. There will even be a bank account on which it suggests that it's drawn upon. But just like in that movie, Catch Me If You Can, Frank William Abagnale made lots of fake checks, and it's apparently not too hard to do. And they come in. And so one way that these happen is through the classified ads or through online classified ads like Craigslist. There's a website called Craigslist.com, which is essentially the online classified ads. And there, what you can do is see any number of things, just like the newspaper classifieds, and buy them, or you can sell them. There was a man in Greenbrier who was selling a carport, and he advertised it for sale on Craigslist, and it immediately sold. And the scam artist, he called him because they exchanged phone numbers. The scam artist called him and said, yeah, I'll send a check. Well, the carport was for sale for $1,000. And the scam artist said, yeah, he'll send the money. Well, he did. He sent a check. Turned out it was a fake check, but he sent it. And this time, the way that he makes the scam work for him is he sends the money for $1,500. The check is made out for $1,500. So it's incorrectly written. It has the wrong amount. And the man in Greenbrier, the seller, calls the scam artist and says, you wrote the check for $1,500. And the scam artist says, oh, my mistake. Just deposit the check and write me a check back for $500, which is the difference. And that's how the scam artist makes the money, is by encouraging us to think that they've made a mistake or that we're a part of some larger scheme. If it's not within the context of Craigslist, it might be that it just comes in the mail. And it kind of seems like a chain letter. They want you to write a check, and then it goes through a chain, and they're essentially laundering their money through multiple people who are depositing and writing it back out along a chain. And ultimately, the scam artist gets it at the end. We also have phishing and smishing. We'll cover this in a slide right after this. I want to show that to you. These are the ideas that people send these emails and text messages that look awfully real. They send them from Netflix, or I get them from PayPal or Amazon or Walmart or any number of other entities. Wells Fargo, my mortgage lender, they will send me emails, and somehow I just assume, and I'm sure there are some very sophisticated computer experts who are on this Zoom meeting and would be able to opine on this, but I just assume that scam artists are in my email, that any Hotmail, Yahoo, any sort of a free email service, I just assume they're in there. So whatever we share in there, just kind of think that it's generally public. That's why they know who my mortgage lender is. And so they're going to impersonate emails. How many of us, and this is where I would ask to raise hands, but I'm sure many of us will order something from a site, and we'll immediately get an email from that organization that coincides with it. But it turns out it's a scam email. It's because they're watching, I think it's because they're watching my email, and they know when these things happen, and they think that if I'm expecting an Amazon package, for example, that somehow if a well-timed email comes back to me and gets me to click on something in it, then all of a sudden I might give my name, which they have, date of birth, social security number, or bank account information. You can see why it's just like the magic trick. That's all they want, is for me to click on something in that email and give my information over. Why is it that Wells Fargo, my mortgage lender, who probably knows more about me than anybody, because that's what they do, why is it that all of a sudden they need to verify my bank account information? It just doesn't make any sense at all. And so any financial institution that is asking you to verify information, that is just a scam. It is a phishing attempt. And it wants us to click on that button to give over those 4 pieces of information, or it wants to open up our computer to a virus or scam or a ransomware scam. And that's where they take over your computer. And then they put a little message, a little box on there that says, pay this money and we'll release your computer. Generally, if that ever happens, I always tell people, do not engage in paying that money. Instead, unplug the computer from the wall and take it to a computer store, because chances are they're going to take your money. They're going to want you to get those gift cards, and they want to scratch off the back and sell them, or they are going to, and they're not going to release your computer. They're not going to do that. Your computer will essentially be fried. And the goal is to go and try and recover what you can from the computer and then move on without losing your money too. So smishing is the idea. You may have seen in text messages, on our phones, that SMS text is the letters that I'm sure that stands for something technologically. I don't know what it is, but SMS text, those for us Apple users, those are the green texts. Blue are the iMessage texts, which are free. The green ones are the SMS texts. Well, smishing is the idea of phishing, but on SMS texting, hence the word smishing. So that's what that's called. We'll see a smishing attempt here in a minute on a COVID-19 slide I'm going to show you here in just a moment. Money orders and gift cards, generally speaking, I'll just say this quickly so we can move on to our next piece. Generally speaking, money order and gift cards, if you are asked to pay in those 2 mediums for someone, to pay someone you don't know for a service you did not know that you needed, it is a scam. And in recent years, there have been litigations against companies like MoneyGram and Western Union that try to rein in this conduct, try and get these companies to do more due diligence on behalf of consumers before they're sent through the airwaves or over wires, so that the money is not lost. Generally speaking, once money is wired, it is gone. And this is that that toothpaste being squeezed out of the tube issue. It's occasionally able to be recovered. If it's done within a day and a half or so before the funds are released, then it might be recoverable, but generally it's gone. And especially with gift cards, it's for sure gone once you give the numbers over the internet. COVID-19 scams. I'll tell you this briefly. This is a really interesting slide, and I found this by looking through Facebook. Someone had pointed this out. You might recognize that format as being a text message on an iPhone. And here's a text message that someone received saying that someone who came in contact with you tested positive or has shown symptoms for COVID-19 and recommends that you self-isolate or get tested. More at that link. Well, what that person wants you to do, and they're thinking fear and urgency, right? I'm sure everyone on here is thinking of fear and urgency. We are living in a pandemic right now. We are running testing sites around the state. As you know, they're running on weekends. There are volunteer nurses and practitioners who are doing this. And if you got a text message like this, then immediately you're thinking, oh my gosh, I might have it. I might need to be concerned. I need to click this link. And they want you to click that link. But once you do, this is a smish or a smishing attempt, SMS text. And they want you to click that link and give over your name, because that's the first question. All right, sir, tell me your name. Shawn Johnson. All right, and date of birth. And it's going to sound like a doctor's visit because that's the way they invited this. And they want to get those pieces of information so that we give it over. Or they want to take over or create a problem with our phone or our computer if that's where we receive it. So on situations like this, I would never click that link. And instead, what I would do if I were an Arkansan is call the Arkansas Department of Health. Call the source. Call the entity that might otherwise be responsible for that, and don't rely on some unsolicited information like this. Now, it might be different if we were recently tested and they advised us, we're going to be providing your test results by text message. That's different, okay? So it's important that we know that. Here's a couple of examples of phishing scams, and this is a little skill that I wanted to teach everyone. I always have difficulty doing this when I present live, so I'm using this as an opportunity to show you. I'm using my cursor to circle the email that I received, okay? And I received it at one of my private email addresses. And you can see here, it's funny because there's a from and there's a to, but my name isn't here. See that? And in fact, the name is linked as what's called to. So the scammer has just kind of screwed up. That's what that shows me. They didn't really do this diligently, but somehow they included my name, which gives me some sense that I need to believe that. I need to believe that it's true. And oh, now they flashed COVID-19 at the bottom. Okay, so all of a sudden I'm getting a government announcement about emergency tax relief to my private email address. It mentions my name. But here's the problem. When I click this right here, which is the from field, IRS assistance programs, this is what comes up. Now, this is the important key. Look at the email address that it came from. It's some series of crazy characters. There's an upside down M, an upside down T, 81Q, 6V51, umbrella, umbrella, umbrella at contoso.com. That is a complete scam. And the way I know that is by clicking on that from, that little blue series of letters right there. I know and can get to this screen and look at that email address by clicking on that from field. The same thing happens on this next one. This is my Wells Fargo example. Comes to my private email address. Okay, now it's my email address. It's in there. But somehow my mortgage lender is wanting to give me $1,000. That is never going to happen, right? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And so what I did in the from field, which says it's from some entity called congratulations. Now, my eyes are popping at this, right? $1,000. Heck, I want that, right? But when you click on congratulations, this is the name card that comes up. And this is the email address. Newsletter 87448BGEYAD7J@UDNZK074.com press. And then it goes on. This is a scam. And I know that because I click on the from field and I look at this and it doesn't say wellsfargo.com. It should come from wellsfargo.com if it's real. And that's how you can check and deflect against those problems. Oh, I went too far. was going to tell everybody on May 14th, this is just a little break from everything. On May 14th, 1998, we lost this famous American. I've already revealed the answer on accident. I double clicked apparently. Who was it? And I know that I remember this day. I was at Hendricks. I remember exactly where I was when it was announced that Frank Sinatra had died May 14th on this day, 22 years ago. And it's really remarkable to think back of all of those great songs and performances that he made, and still influences us every day. So just some tips. I've really already shared these, and then I want to open it up to questions. Just remember to secure your information in order to prevent being scammed. Secure all information. Be thinking about, what is it in my purse that I have, or in my wallet, or in my car? I mean, my car contains my address probably, and I need to get all that stuff out of there, because if your car were stolen or broken into, a scam artist would know how to get back to your house. So it's important to think about those things. I mean, it's on our car registration. So, you know, at some point it goes a little far, but it's just, you got to think about it. So secure that information. Say no to wire transfers unless it's absolutely certain that you know who you're sending it to. Remember to be prepared to say no. Have the ability to say no to people who are calling and wanting information. Just tell them no. We're taught to be polite on the phone. I always was. And generationally, that's the case for a lot of people, even more so. But saying no is important. It's the best way to prevent that scam from happening in a lot of times. Wait for checks to clear. Something I failed to mention on that fake check scam is, if you want to deposit that fake check, go ahead, see what happens. But just know there are sophisticated banking connections that are made above our two banks, the bank that it's written on and the bank where it's deposited. There are banks upstream that connect and talk to one another up here. And it takes days for the fake check to be realized. In fact, I would wait 2 weeks before you absolutely know that those monies are good, because your bank in some circumstances will go ahead and credit that money to you because you're a good customer and they trust you, or for other reasons. So wait on that check to clear before you pay out those proceeds, because that scammer wants that fear and urgency to kick in. Oh my gosh, I paid you too much. Just write me the difference. Do it now. Do it right away. Don't do it. Prizes don't cost money to win money. Remember that. Number 5. Don't open email from unknown sources, and certainly don't click on things within those emails. Don't do it unless you absolutely know who it's from. Wherever it is. Money orders and gift cards are generally untraceable. So know that and be careful and mindful of that. And when I say they're untraceable, money orders are clearly traceable, but I mean, once it's picked up, we don't know where it goes. You know, it could be picked up in cash or for whatever, in whatever other way. Number 8, the government will send a letter before an arrest. You're not going to get some call out of the blue that says that you're going to be arrested. And that there's a warrant out for your arrest. Remember generally just to be skeptical also, and to watch out for friends and loved ones. This is that sharing the good news, telling everybody about that we have to be skeptical of these things, that we can't believe that things are as they seem, that a lot of these things are actually magic tricks. So there's the end of Scam School, and I have my website there for more information, or if you want to call me, that's my phone number, and I'm happy to talk and give suggestions and ideas. But it's that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if we can do that, armed with this information, then it helps us all. So what questions do we have?
Thank you, Shawn. And you, everyone, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question.
Let me also take my screen off here.
Joe, did you have a question?
I sent them all to you in chat.
I see them. Joe just wanted to say that you do get some protections if you use a credit card with paying for things. And she wanted you to know that SMS stands for short message service.
There it is.
I wanted to just pass on that we had a LifeQuest member whose email was hacked and sent a lot of LifeQuest members an email requesting assistance in another country.
Sure.
that she was going through some life issues, and it looked like she was out of the country and needed help right away and couldn't get to her money. And of course, like you said, people prey on fear. And also, I think hand in hand with that goes care and concern for those family members or friends. You feel love towards them, and so you want to help if you're concerned. And when I clicked the email, I noticed right away that the reply address was not the same as the address that had been sent from. And so in emails, that's something a little you can look out for. And also, people called the LifeQuest office and said, is this legit? And I want them to know it doesn't have to involve a LifeQuest member if they want to call us and ask, is this a legit thing? We can usually help them figure out if it is a legit concern.
That is awesome, Gina. And I think that is that safe space concept. As long as there's somebody who is a safe place to call. I know of there was one senior I spoke with, and the principal concern of that senior was, if I divulge this to my children, they're going to want me to not be independent anymore. They're going to take away my bank account or pressure me to do that. And that loss of independence is a very real, I think it's a very real fear. That's that fear and urgency concept coming out in a different way. And so I'm so grateful that you do that. I'm always willing to be that sounding board as well. Like I said, I just encourage us all to have those conversations with loved ones in our family who we think might be susceptible to these things in any respect. And just tell them, I'm not going to judge you in the least. Scam artists are good at what they do. They know how to do this.
Good job.
Yeah. When you were talking about the sweetheart deal, I also wanted to point out, if people don't know, that's what younger people call catfishing.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So they even have a TV show about it.
Anyone else have a brush with a scammer?
Any IRS scams or favorite relative scams?
I made one cry one time.
What did you do, Bernadette?
Well, I recognized it was a scam right away. And it was a while back, but I started just saying, you know, giving him a sad story. What wasn't true about that was going on in my life. And he he was a young man, and he just totally fell into it. And he says, well, and at the end, I mean, I could tell he was kind of, you know, it bothered him. Maybe the guilt, I don't know. And then he apologized, you know, for bothering me. And I continued saying, well, you know, I'm sure things will get better, you know, so.
So you scammed a scammer. Is that what you did, Bernadette? Is that what you're telling us?
Kind of like that. And there was another time too when this was a physical type. Well, I don't think he was scamming, but he was a panhandler, and I had just came out of my bank. This is when I was in California. I was going through a real difficult time. My husband had left me. I was going through chemo, and you know, things were just really, really bad. And I didn't have enough money to buy groceries or anything. I think I had like $5 or $8 in my checking account after my bills were paid. And I'm sitting in my car trying to hold back the tears in front of the bank. And this man comes up to me and he knocks on the window and he's asking for money. And I just looked at him and I'm like, you know, I just couldn't help it. The tears just started flowing. And I just told him what's going on. I said, if I had it, I would. I mean, I've got some change here in my, and he, you know, he looked at me, you're going to laugh. I mean, I didn't mean for this to happen, but he gave me $20.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, oh, I can't take that from you. You need it. He goes, no, you know what? You need it more than I do.
And that gives me hope that maybe he was actually a legitimate person in need and not someone standing on the corner to make money for the alcohol or whatever. So
that or an angel, I don't know.
It's the people who I see not fall for these, but who they're tugged on their heartstrings. And so they, you know, the fear and the wanting to help people, that's what.
Shawn, I had one that I didn't fall for, but it did concern me. So I got a message from Gretchen, or one time it was Donald or something. And in the reason why I clicked on it, which I shouldn't have, but was my password was a part of the subject line, a password that I had not in a recent time, but it was a legitimate portion of a password that I have used for retail shopping or something like that. And then in the body of the letter, it started off real chatty, and then it got threatening that it was going to expose my viewing of some salacious websites, which I thought was kind of fascinating. I wanted to know what they came up with, but it would expose my, purchases or something. And then I was required to send Bitcoin. I could tell this is such a scam. But I was like, ooh, how did they get my password? So.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. I don't know what, and there may be someone on who knows more about this than I do, but there have got to be programs that just run through and try and figure out passwords. And I think that's what they do, which is why, by the way, security professionals will tell us we need to have very sophisticated, complicated passwords for every single thing that we do so that no password is shared. I remember there was a time 20 years ago, and I'm sure we were all doing this. I would use the same username and password for every single platform I was on. So that meant my credit
still
card.
Do that, which is why I probably deserve that email.
Yeah, my credit card, my bank account, my Netflix account, my Amazon account, they all had the same username and password. And as these systems have figured those out, that means that a scam artist can log into any one of them just by figuring out one. To keep our sanity on that, there are password keepers out there. On my phone, I use one called Dashlane. Apple has recently started doing this on its own. I guess I trust that. I don't know. Apple's done a pretty good job of encrypting things, so maybe it's trustworthy. But the goal for your passwords is to include longer passwords, and therefore that's why these password keepers are helpful, with letters, symbols, numbers, uppercase and lowercase numbers and letters. What the phones are doing to make it simpler, and I do appreciate this, is they are auto-filling those for us. So they're keeping them locally. Your address or your usernames and passwords are kept locally on the phone. But when you go to, like I'm Bank of Little Rock, you go to Bank of Little Rock, it will automatically fill in the fields to log you in. So it doesn't make us have to search around and get all the symbols and letters right.
I think Alan has a follow-up question to that.
I did actually, but I think you've answered it for me. I was going to query, since I've kind of converted everything over to Apple, everything I have now is basically Apple. Is the Apple keychain a safe repository for those things? Because it does all of the services that you just cited. I guess my question is, if I trust the Apple keychain software, how hackable will that be sometime in the future, where now all of a sudden they hit the jackpot by just being able to crack into keychain?
It's a gamble, and I couldn't say one way or the other. I haven't done independent research in the past, I think, year or so on the best password keepers out there. That's how I found Dashlane. And I'm not here to recommend Dashlane. It's just the one that I've used, and I have about 150 passwords on there, and I'm not about to try and migrate to a new one right now because there's so much to do in order to do that. But with Apple, I will say, I'm not going to sit here and try and endorse Apple by any means. I use Apple products as well. But what I've noticed that they do as a major tech company is they're very much in favor of working to encrypt their data. You remember there was a shooting, as I recall, in San Bernardino a couple of years ago. And one of the issues there was that the law enforcement authorities wanted to get access to the iPhone. They wanted to know the secret sauce so that they could determine what it was that he had said or not said, or what websites he had visited. And Apple said no. And law enforcement said yes, and Apple said no. And ultimately, my recollection is that they kind of met in the middle a little bit. Apple agreed to let certain aspects of the messaging go through, but not the secret sauce. They seem to be very sophisticated and guarded about the way that they safeguard data. And I think that that's encouraging. But as far as an endorsement, I couldn't say one way or the other that Apple is by any means, or any of these. I think everything's hackable. I think that's ultimately what we need to all understand. It's just like me, kind of in a conspiracy sort of way, saying, I know that people are in my email. It's just too coincidental that I order something from Amazon and then a day later I get some sort of a shipping issue from Amazon that wants me to click on it. They're in there, they know what I'm sending and they know what I'm receiving, or somebody is. Same here. I think that these password keepers, sure. I think everything's hackable to some degree. And having a sophisticated username, well, password in particular, I think is one of the chief keys.
John,
One
I
thing
really
that's not
appreciate
hackable-
you.
One thing that's not hackable is my card file.
That's right.
That's true.
Anything not attached to the wall through a wire. That's right.
I was going to say, I really appreciate you sharing about the COVID email or text that you had got, and how that preys on fear of people who have been with other people recently. And do you foresee any other scams in the future about testing or antigen testing or anything like that coming up?
Certainly. And it doesn't really even take COVID to make that happen. They just add to the fear and urgency, right? Anybody could cook up any scheme trying to get us to give our information. And COVID is a really good one, because anytime they can build that fear and urgency, those are the keys, fear and urgency. If they can build that, make us nervous, buy confidence from us, that's what they'll do. So yes, there are lots of ways. It could be any manner of things. It could be an email from your bank, or a telephone call from your bank or mortgage lender, or a retirement account. Boy, that would be somewhere where a scammer would like to get those proceeds out. So any way that a scam artist could figure out where you bank, where you save your money, any place where they can just get a hold of your bank account information, they'll do it. One other scam that was going around, I understand, in Northwest Arkansas was, I failed to mention this one, I meant to, is the idea that the CDC was going around and conducting testing in people's homes. And in fact, what they were doing was preying upon seniors in particular by saying, early on, you'll recall that there was a category of susceptible people who were, as I recall, they made it 55 or 60 and above. Well, of course, the numbers have demonstrated, probably because seniors are obeying the social distancing and quarantining better than anybody, the numbers are much higher in my age demographic than in the 40s than above 55 or 60. Well, regardless, this senior was approached and was told that they were susceptible to COVID, and that the CDC needed to do a mouth swab. And at that time, there was no mouth swab. And in fact, the CDC and the Department of Health, nobody was going around and conducting those tests door to door. Then on the way out, they asked this woman to pay $50 for the test, and she did. And then, as I understand it, they left with her social security number. So I haven't heard of that happening widespread, probably because people aren't allowing people into their houses. So it naturally is going to defeat that type of scam, but the CDC isn't doing that. They're not going door to door. That's a good scam as well. But I think as we're isolating, we're going to see a lot of email scams, a lot of text scams, and phone scams.
Are you seeing any census-related scams?
Well, I have not personally, but I think that they are out there. I think the COVID scam buys a lot more fear and urgency. Now, the census, I don't know, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that they've been sending emails regarding the census, but they have given the information out and asked us to visit a website, which is a much safer way to do it. If you ever get an email, though, from the census, even if it's legitimate, I would suggest looking for any website address that's on there and going to that website and looking at it yourself. It's just like lately, there are, you might get some solicitation from what appears to be a local entity, something coming in by phone or by email, but it could very easily be a fake number or a fake contact of some kind. And so what I do is I'll say, I'm not going to give my personal information over the phone. And then I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call back the bank and I'm going to ask for you. You know, that's a way to get through and talk to a person who actually goes through the authorized number. Same with a website in the census. Rather than clicking on something in an email that we receive, you might go to the census website, probably census.gov or something, whatever that website is, and then go through there to enter your information.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that this time.
Thank you so much, Shawn. I think we're at the end of our hour. Good questions. LifeQuesters are a savvy group of people, and you've helped make us safer. And we appreciate that very much, and for you taking the time today. This has been streamed on our Facebook page, so if your friends who missed joining us on the Zoom class want to watch it from the LifeQuest Facebook page, or later this afternoon, it'll be uploaded to the LifeQuest website. And so